Now, there's been some great research done on this. A number of years ago, in the second half of the last century, in fact, Dr. J.P. Guilford, a renowned psychologist, conducted some groundbreaking research on the human mind. And as part of his research, he looked into how people make decisions on complex sales. Now, Miller Heiman has spent a lot of time in and around this research applying it to the complex sale. And what we have here is we have, in the first stage, is we have cognition thinking. This is the phase where everyone is really trying to understand what the problem is and what the issue is. This is the thought process that your buyer is going through. You'll notice this is a pretty large circle, and as we add the other circles, they're going to be smaller as we get down the decision-making process. This is the stage where the client is saying, is this an issue that I want to deal with now? If I do deal with this issue now, who should I get involved with the issue? And I need to quantify how big of an issue this is right now. So you do my estate planning for me, you come up with my estate tax issue. I always knew I had a problem. You might have quantified it a little bit, but I'm trying to make a decision, should I address this and should I do it now? What they're trying to do is they're really trying to develop their concept, their expectations for a solution image. So that's what I want to get out of this. Okay, I have an issue. I think I want to involve my CFO, my CPA, maybe my general counsel. I think we ought to get together, get our arms around this. And my vision for a solution, if I had a clean piece of paper, would look something like this. So that's the first phase people go in. If you go back to the data that I shared with you earlier, this is all about that first characteristic of what made people successful. It's educating the client, bringing different perspectives to the table, and so forth. From there, the client goes into generating possible alternatives with divergent thinking. So they're now getting their arms around this. They've recognized they have the issue. They've now employed the right team in place to start looking at this. Now they want to look at all the possible alternatives that are in place. They want to see what all of the solutions are. Now, what we have as salespeople, especially with the technical knowledge that you all have, is you want to cut to the chase. So you've met with me, you've done the analysis, you know what the solution is, you come forward and you give me the solution without other alternatives, and I'm thinking there must be more to this than that. There must be other alternatives that you're not bringing to me. And especially if you go out to my outside advisors and they start bringing up possible alternatives, we're saying, I'm thinking your credibility is falling off here because why didn't you bring those up? Because all you're trying to do is sell me your product or service at this stage. And my thinking is that we really need to vet out all of the alternatives and we need to zero in on a possible solution. So during this phase, what we are trying to do is look at possible solutions. And from there, then we narrow it down into selecting the best possible solution with convergent thinking. We want to converge in on a final solution. We want to zero in on the final solution. And this is a thought process. If you look at the circles here, you got a lot of time spent up here. You've got a connection here because some of the buying influences are in between. Some people are still trying to get their arms around, should we do this now? Others are looking at possible solutions. And then finally, some are already down here with a solution. So if a prospect in the first meeting says to you, look, we've been doing a lot of work with another advisor and so forth, and I really like your story and I like your firm and what you're doing, how much would it cost to buy a $10 million second to die life insurance policy on my spouse and I, and here's our ages? Where are they on this chart? They're down here, right? They're already down, they're probably right in this little circle. If you're in the retirement space and you get an RFP in the mail, or you're invited by an organization, you're invited to come in and tell us what you do and where you are. Where are you here? you're right here. Somebody has already spent time getting them to recognize a need to change. Somebody has already spent time, and maybe they've done it internally also, vetting out all of the possible solutions. And now they're in this final stage of selecting the best, and you show up here, and all they want to do is talk about product. In my early days of selling, when COLI was just becoming a product that had lots of prevalence as a funding vehicle, I would show up to an organization and they go, oh, we're working with ABC company. In fact, we've already been through plan design and so forth. We decided to fund this program with corporate-owned life insurance. Could you basically take our census data and give us a quote on what you can do? And what do you think my chances of selling that opportunity are? Right, slim to none, right? So they show up and they go, give me the data. So my job and your job in a consulting role is to get them to reconsider and come back up in their thinking. I would say, I'm not sure at this stage, based on the knowledge that I have, if you're a candidate for corporate-owned life insurance. And they go, what? What do you mean? Well, I don't know much about your tax structure, or a full taxpayer. I don't know when deferrals are going to be paid out. Are most of you people young taking short-term distributions? Or you got a lot of older people putting their money away for retirement? I don't know the age group. I don't know the insurability. I don't know your projections for any acquisitions or loss carry forwards or whatever in the future. I don't have enough data, but there's many ways of funding this. Have you considered, so I want to bring them back up, have you considered this and that and so forth? When you were trying to get your arms around the concept up front, and I'll guarantee you with multiple decision makers, as we went through earlier today, somebody's going to say, you know, Bill's right. I don't think we vetted this thing out properly. I think we're moving too quickly. And now you have an opportunity to try to turn the scale. Yes?
What about you are the guy who initially started with number one, and then there's a competition coming in, trying to bring it into discussion. How do you defend your position?
Great question. In fact, you're in a better position if you're the guy who worked with them on the concept in the beginning, and you're the person who went through the generating of alternative solutions and so forth, and you're positioning this. By the time you get down here, they've self-selected. They've found this solution in concert with your process, so they're pretty sold on moving forward. Somebody comes in and says, but I can do it for $5,000 cheaper. Do you think that the person bringing that proposal in, you think the team that you've worked with, vetting out all the alternatives and creating the solution, is going to make the change for $5,000? Maybe let me flip that a second. So if I said I'm looking for a $10 million second to die policy, and the premium happens to be $115,000 a year, and you come back with a proposal for $89,500, what do you think I'm going to do with it?
Take it to the other guy.
I'm going to take it to the guy who did all the work, and I'm going to say, Lou, somebody gave me this illustration, and basically it looks like it's a better deal. And Lou's going to sit down and bring me back and educate me. I looked at that. I mean, we looked at that as an alternative. It basically is not going to meet the objectives we all talked about in the first phase. It's not going to work in concert. He's proposing it the wrong way to begin with. And I'm going to go, you're right. And he goes, look, I think we're in solid ground. We looked at it this way. This is why we did it and so forth. And I go, he's right. And I just go, I'm following his advice. So you're in a lot better position when people come in from the outside if you did the proper job. But if I show up in the middle and I say, have you thought about combining the funding of COLI and mutual funds? When you went through the process here of looking at how to fund this, and you go, yeah, Bob did that for us. Bob ran out actually extensive spreadsheets. He looked at mutual funds and COLI, and the reason we didn't select mutual funds is because most of the participants were selecting their retirement benefits long term, and based on our tax position, that's what we did. So thanks for your proposal. So if you do your job right, if you spend a lot more time, and the important part of this is really spend it back here. If you end up getting into a situation, and not to put Lou on the spot, but he does an excellent job with this, with really trying to understand what are you trying to accomplish? Like, well, forget about products and services you're providing. What are you trying to accomplish? Tell me what your vision, what your dreams and desires are. What are you trying to do? If you had a clean piece of paper today and you were going to write out the solution, forget about all the funding vehicles out there and so forth. Tell me what you're trying to do, and that's what developing the concept is. Then together what we will do is we'll look at everything that you have and we'll look at the possible alternatives. We'll roll up our sleeves and work in concert with you and your advisors to put the best plan together. Doesn't that make sense? And that's where the trust factor comes in. But unless you can get someone, and I have made this mistake, and I'm sure that you've made the mistake, where we haven't really got our arms around what the vision for the solution is. When we use over here the meeting plan, which comes into play when we have a new opportunity, is what we want to do is we want to know what the buying influences name is, their roles, and what their concept is. So what's their concept for what the solution looks like? So we all have a tendency to say, well, they want to buy life insurance and fund this thing. I'm not sure that's the concept. So the concept would be, what I'm trying to do is pass this business on for another generation, and I want to do that in a cost-effective way.